Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the LaunchDay Shorts podcast. I'm your host, Dean Cvetkoski, a.k.a. WhoDean. And today in studio, we've got a brilliant man. Honestly, let me tell you, we've had a handful of conversations in the past, and all I can say is I've just enjoyed them so thoroughly. I'd like to introduce Amit Singh into our studios today. Amit, how you going?
Good, thanks, Dean. Great to be here. Great to chat
That's
again,
good,
as
man.
always.
I love it, man. I love it. Well, hey, look, most of our conversations in the past have been more around, business, direction, some ideas, things of that nature. But I don't know much about you personally, man. Like, do you want to give me a run through? I mean, I'm not the kind of guy who's like, oh yeah, tell me one or two things. I like details, right? So go from very early ages and then right through to now. What are the highlights?
Yeah, no worries. I mean, I have a bit of a story and I try not to labor on it too much, but it's something that I never really talked much about until more recently when people seem to be interested. So I'll go right back. I'm actually from Fiji. Most people look at my name and look at me and say, oh, you're Indian. But
Mm.
usually when they hear me speak, they realize you don't sound like a normal Indian. And that's because I'm not from India. I'm from Fiji. Born and raised in Fiji and New Zealand, and been in Australia for most of my childhood and education and everything. But
Mm.
why that's important is that what I didn't realize is that the way that I was raised actually has shaped a lot about how I am now as a business person and a family man and everything.
Mm.
Because I come from a family which was very scrappy. We never had education. No one in the family had education past high school, if that. But did a lot of things in business, which only now recently in my life have I looked back and realized how much that has influenced the way that I think and the way that I run at everything that I do. But that's kind of from a life background. But personally, my own journey since I sort of came to Australia has been one of the traditional career, follow the bouncing ball, do high school, do university, get a job, get a promotion, get a job, get a promotion. And I did that for 20 years or close to 20 years until I sort of woke up and realized, you know what, I think I've scratched that itch. I think I've proven to my family that my generation can surpass my previous generation in education and getting jobs and having stable lives, and moved my life into entrepreneurship recently. So that's kind of where I am now, and why I'm doing these very out of my comfort zone things with you, Dean, because this is the new me.
No, I get that, man. So let me get this straight, right? So growing up, and around surrounding the family, education wasn't as important, but everyone was kind of in entrepreneurship and in business. Did I get that right?
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, my mum sort of drilled into me really heavily to that education is important,
Mm.
only because she didn't have the opportunities.
Mm.
So, so she kind of didn't know any better. It's like, hey, go to university and do all these things because I couldn't do it. And I look at me, I'm stuck, have a job and trying to run businesses and things like that.
Mm.
So that's kind of how I was raised, that you must do these things. It was like I said, only in retrospect did I realize actually what I learned through osmosis by watching my parents actually be scrappy and operate little businesses and do things because they didn't have an education, so they couldn't get like these professional jobs. So I've gone full circle, and that's what I want to do now. The education has helped me get to where I am, but not going to get me where I want to go.
Yeah, it's exactly right. No, I get that, man. I get that, and it's an interesting thing, right? Because we always look at you always look at generational wealth. When I say generational wealth, like we think, oh yeah, like we're gonna build wealth for generations. But what I look at more specifically is you've got first generation, second generation, and third generation. And the first generation, it goes in cycles, right? The first generation tends to create the wealth. The second generation kind of continues the legacy, but is less like, so that I suppose it's handed to them as opposed to learning how to do the hard work. And then the third generation just spends the wealth. And then it goes back to, square one. So then their kids, because they spend the wealth, they end up in a really shit situation. And then their children end up having to be the pioneers that recreate the wealth. And it's actually a study that's been proven over the generations. It's such an interesting concept. It gets to a certain point where, once you hit a certain amount of wealth, that it tends to just keep on carrying on. But as far as your everyday person, it seems to be that cycle. And so, it makes me wonder whether or not your parents may have been the third generation, where potentially they, maybe two generations prior, they were a very wealthy family, and then going into where they were, because life was good at the start and they didn't have to think too hard about what they needed to do because their parents kind of had it all covered. And maybe there wasn't information. I'm assuming here, right? Speculating, but like, I wonder if that would be the case. Like, do you think that you're becoming now the new first generational wealth in your family bloodline now, in that cycle?
It's interesting. I don't, I'd probably say that I don't think my parents have ever had any wealth in the traditional sense, but probably they came from a simpler time when different things mattered. My parents were born in Fiji, and Fiji's now it's all tourism, but back then it was farming, and you have a simple life and you have everything you need, kind of thing. And so maybe they did feel wealthy, even if they didn't have, they weren't rolling in cash. It didn't really matter. But because the reason they left, I neglected to mention, is because in the late 80s, there was a military coup and, a series of coups, and it became unsafe, particularly for Indians in Fiji. So my parents fled and came to the Western world, where suddenly you need cash money. Being wealthy because you're happy with your surroundings does not cut it anymore. So, couch surfing as a family of four little children, until we get a roof over our heads, it was I think the rude awakening. So my parents were, having to be very resourceful and set the foundations for what I'm now enjoying. So now I've got this opportunity to go and create wealth. So I think I'm that generation, the second one, potentially. And then my children will probably, if I succeed, enjoy that wealth and squander it. And then their children would have to rebuild it. That's, I think, what's going to happen.
There's two things that I want to ask, right? The first one is, why was it particularly dangerous to be Indian in the 1980s during the military coup? Like, why specifically dangerous for Indians? I'm very curious because I don't know much about it.
Yeah, no, sure. So literally the reason the coup happened was because...
Hey, yes, I'm talking to you, and I know it looks like the interview, but it's actually not. We're taking a really quick, short break so that way you can hear me out. I really want you to hear me out here. If you are a business owner, you are building your personal brand. I mean, you could be anyone. You could be a real estate agent. You could be an astronaut, an IT professional. It really doesn't matter who you are and where you fit into the world. This interview is great for you. If you're really struggling to make content, and let's face it, right? When we get our phones out and we're like, taking selfies and doing videos that way, it just comes across as inauthentic. And the other side of that as well is the fact that it's just so hard to come up with ideas of what kind of content to create. And this is where our interviews absolutely bring a powerhouse and an arsenal of, basically a war chest in terms of your organic content marketing that you're creating. We create the TikToks and Reels for you. Here's the thing. I've got some great news. The great news is that this interview is completely free. We boost your SEO on Google because we go and feature these videos like the one you're watching on YouTube. And not only that, but we also give you free content to post to TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and all the rest of it as well. So if you haven't already, in the description down below is a link to Linktree, where you'll see the opportunity for you to book your very own interview and get free content for your personal brand or your business as well. I'll see you on the other side of the screen.
In Fiji, I think still to this day is about 50% Indian, 50% native local Fijians. And so back in the day, the Indians pretty much ran government and business and things like that for whatever reason. And the natives, this is a gross generalization, I probably got some of my facts wrong here, but the natives were in the military and doing a lot of labor work kind of stuff. And so at some point they went, hang on, we're going to take our country back, and we have the military, so we can because we've got guns. And so, it became tense between the Indian community and the local native community.
Very interesting.
And I think it was quite dangerous for some. I mean, I don't know how dangerous it was specifically for my family. I was 4 years old when we left. But my parents clearly saw that irrespective of danger, that probably the future, there was a lot of instability in the country. The future wasn't there. So, and the reason we went to New Zealand is because as New Zealand welcomed us with open arms and Australia wouldn't. Australia is a lot more stringent with immigration. So went to New Zealand, 5 years there, got our New Zealand citizenship, and then Australia went, hey, you're Kiwis, why don't you say so? Come in. And then we came to Australia.
Yeah. That makes total sense, man. I love that. Yeah. I love that. And, going back onto the generational wealth side of things, do you reckon there's a method or a way to break that, I suppose, that cycle, so that way whatever you learn about building wealth, carries on to every descendant thereafter, as opposed to making it a lazy thing and I'm here to receive that wealth and not actually do anything with it in terms of growing it or anything like that. Like, do you reckon if you had an idea on what you could do to break that, do you have any ideas right now?
That's a great question. And I've actually thought about this specifically quite a lot because I intend on being wealthy, much wealthier than I am now. And I don't want to damage my children as a result of that. But at the same time, I want my children to enjoy it because, work hard and you want to enjoy having luxuries. But to answer your question directly, the way I've thought about it is focusing on values. So and that's there's a bit about education there. So, since I've gone into business, I've made quite a concerted effort, even though my children are young, I've made quite a concerted effort to bit by bit explain to them or help them understand what it is that I do and how it is that I do it, more importantly, how I get money, basically, because they're too little to understand about business in the broader sense.
How old are they now?
10, 8, and 5.
10, 8, and 5.
Yeah.
So I've got 5 and 8. So I've got my two daughters are 5 and 8. So there you go. Yeah. So what is that? Like, what is it that I'm curious now, because now we're on a topic that I'm passionate about, which is kids. So family is my number one value. And so when we're talking about they're a little bit too young to understand about business, I mean, what is it exactly that, you think that they can't understand?
I think at such an early age, they every input that they get about the working world is that people get jobs and they do things and then they get money for doing those jobs, and you have a boss. This is what the world teaches children. You get a job, you have a boss, you do what they want, they give you money. And I've got a running joke with my kids ever since I've gone into business where they say, I'll say, really, I've got this thing that I've got to get to later. I'm really busy. And they're like, is it your boss? I'm like, yeah, my boss is really hard on me. And then like, hang on, aren't you your own boss? I'm like,
yeah, that's right.
Correct. and that's a running joke I got with them. But the lesson behind it that I'm trying to instill in them, that I unpack for them from time to time, is that I hold myself to certain standards because I want to do work that I'm proud of, that doesn't always feel like work. And the reward for doing these things means that I get some money, and that money we use to buy the things that we like,
Mm.
and I control that. And if I feel like I have enough money, then I'll do less work. And if I want some more money, maybe I'll do some more work. And if I'm bored with what work I'm doing, maybe I'll do some different work. And all of those things feed into the money that I make that we use to buy the things that we want. And that's the conversation I have with my kids. Not exactly like that, but in that vein. So I think what I'm trying to do, and this is there's no rule book here, but what I'm trying to do is show them that any individual can live a life where they balance the money that they get with the work that they do and the things that they buy and the people that they spend time with. It's just all one thing. And that doesn't get taught in school or anywhere. So that's kind of what my theory anyway. That's how I feel. So it comes out authentically, hopefully, to my children, and they see it so that when they grow up or as they grow, they consider that I'm really interested in this thing. I want to do this thing, not I'm going to get a job where I can do this thing. Like I want to do this thing first and then figure out how I'm going to get paid for it.
For me, I'm kind of looking at, so I teach my kids entrepreneurship, right? And what I've realized is like, I've been trying to analyze what is it exactly that, builds people like us. And I'm finding that it's adversity. And so it's not just like adversity from, your parents are going through adversity, but the actual children need to feel the adversity too. And that has a lot to do with spoiling them in even the smallest ways. And I'm hard sometimes. Like when I say I'm hard, I'm not hard on them. I'm hard on myself because I go, oh, come on, like it's just a lolly. You know what I mean? But I'm sort of reinforcing. I don't know. It's like, again, is there a method to it? Like, is there a specific formula? So I've just been trying different things, and some of what I'm sort of trying with my kids is sort of drawing boundaries around budgeting. So every single time they just go, every single time they're like, "Oh, we want this," I'm like, "No, we don't have." I don't just say no. I say no. We don't have money for that. See, specifically the choice of words. We don't have money for that. We have money. We don't have money for that. And that's something that I've been like trying to work out as well. Is like, what's the overall effect of that on the kids? How do they perceive budgeting? And then the other side of it too is teaching them how to sell. So, people do like lemonade stands, 50 cents. And so like for me, I grew up with this concept of, having to make things cheaper for people to buy them, to be competitive. And it was a really bad construct in my mind that I very quickly deconstructed. And but teaching them like, you know what, hey, let's go sell some lemonade, 50 cents. They made nothing. No one bought anything from them. Instead, they drank the lemonade, right? Because after an hour of waiting, no one came around, right? But then I went and showed them. So if you set up shop here and you wait for people to come by to buy your lemonade, you're not going to sell any lemonade. All right, so let's go out and let's, I bring this up a few times actually, but we had these Google review card things that little business I created just for them. And, I took them out selling to door cold canvas. And I didn't say a word to them. I said to them, yep, here's what we're selling. 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is exactly, this is exactly what needs to happen. You need to say these things and and if they're interested, you tell them the price and they pay. So they started off with just keeping to the simple, it's a Google review card, helps you get more reviews. You tap it on the phone, costs $50, stick to that and you'll be right. Then they start developing their own sales pitch. So then I went, okay, cool. So they develop their own sales pitch. They start asking questions. Do you have a lot of reviews? Oh, no, we don't. Oh, well, you should. You should have at least 100. Like they're kids, man. I'm not telling them this. They're just coming up with it on their own. So they start realizing the more I talk to this person, the more likely they are to buy because from their past experiences going door to door. And they're only 5 and 8. So, But teaching them the disparity as well. Well, hey, do you want to set up a lemonade stand and sit there and make 50 cents for every time you sell a cup? Or do you want to go? And they made, I think, $300 that day. They made $300 and they went, oh, wow, that's amazing. And then I took it up a notch as well. And don't worry, if we hit the 20-minute mark, we're gonna keep going because there's a lot more to talk about. But it gets to a certain point where I actually put budget control in their hands, and I said, all right, guys, today we made, I think the first day we went out, I said, all right, guys, today we made $100. And I go, what do you want for dinner? And they went, oh, we want Enzo's and we want bubble tea, we want this, we want that. You know what I did? Honestly, Amit, I said, sure. I said, but you have to pay for it out of the money you made today. Oh yeah, that's okay. We made $100. I go, okay. You're telling me. So we go to Enzo's. We spend $50. We go get bubble tea. They spent $25. There's $25 left. We go the next morning. They wake up. They go, oh, Daddy, how much money do we have left from yesterday? I said, $25. They were shocked. They were freaking out. They were like, oh, what? They're like, where'd the money go? And I go, well, dinner cost $50 and then bubble tea cost $25 and now we have 25 left because we spent 75. They go, fuck. You know what I mean? Well, I didn't say that, but like that was the look on their face, right? They were like, what? And so now they're like, oh, no, we're going to eat sandwiches. How much are sandwiches, Dad? Can we and I go, do you want to buy ready-made sandwiches or do you want to make your own? They go, how much is like sandwiches to buy? I go, it's $8 for just one sandwich. They go, how much is it to like make our own? I go, probably about $5 and we'll have enough sandwiches for all of us. And then like, oh, okay, so let's make our own sandwiches. So I'm just playing with their psychology. They're starting to get it. You know what I mean?
That's so good. I love that.
Man.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I've seen some of those behaviors in my kids. I haven't done the exercise that you've done, but ever since they've started developing this concept of money, and they get a little bit of pocket money, they do some jobs, and they get some more money and things like that. I've noticed a difference. The kids are different. The middle one, the 8-year-old, a lot more. She thinks ahead a lot more, a lot less impulsive, a lot more. I'm prepared to do the hard work to make my money go further or save it to get the thing that I want. The older one, same household, same parents, same values, just a little bit more in the moment kind of thing. It depends on the circumstance, but a bit more like, I want that thing across that, I'm going to get it.
Sounds like one's a chaos conductor and the other's a taskmaster.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's probably not wrong. But what's interesting is that same house, same lessons, same values and different behaviors. So therein lies the challenge, I think. Everybody responds differently to different things, but I think what you can't lose by instilling some of those lessons in them early. What they do with it, how they mature and use those tools, time will tell. But yeah, I love what you've done. The closest thing I've had to that is when they were trying to sell, chocolate frogs or something from the fundraiser box from school. Oh,
yeah. Door-to-door fundraising. Yeah, well, absolutely.
What they did, we let them come up with their own strategy, their own sales and marketing strategy. And what they wanted to do was set up a stand outside the front of the house and sell it to people, because in their little minds, they wanted to have a shop. They were playing shops, So you set up the little trestle table and they put the signs up, and we didn't let them sit out on the street. We wanted them set back in the driveway a little bit. So then they realized the visibility wasn't there. So then it's like, okay, we'll get some balloons so that people see us. So they were thinking these ideas, but then they sat there just basically bored, because like, how many people are going to walk past the house? And then they went, because we're not far from a train station. And so then there might be more people at times that people normally go to work and come home from work. So we're going to come back and operate a little stand at these particular times and that sort of stuff. And they came up with most of those ideas themselves. But it was just let them experience and learn and think about it. Going at it 10 o'clock on a Sunday morning wasn't going to cut it, but 5 p.m. on a Monday was much better because people are coming home from the train station. So things like that, I love teaching them things like that. That's awesome.
Absolutely, man. And that's like, and so you're on the right track, right? Because that stuff like that just really makes a difference. And I think if we teach them adversity and scarcity on one side, but then we also teach them, hey, you can make a shit ton of money. You know what I mean? And it's not as hard. Like, don't think that, you have to work for 50 cents a cup. You can work for $50 a card. Do you know what I mean? And that's not as hard. It's like if you come up with a really good idea or a good product that people need, that they're willing to pay for it. You know what I mean? And teaching them both sides of that, I think for me are just, I really love that. You know what I mean? I think it really makes a big difference. So it teaches them not to be spoiled and manage your money. And on the other side as well, it kind of teaches them, that you can make a lot of money without having to work so hard for it either, So
I like I also like the money for that. I'm going to take that one because one thing I've always struggled with the kids is that, we've been a bit extra frugal since I've gone into business, trying to get things going and everything. And frugality is not a bad thing, particularly in startup land where I am. But you don't want it to come across as a negative thing. It's by design, being frugal. And so teaching children that, hey, yeah, I've got all this money, but it's for that, but it's not for that is so simple. I love it.
Yeah. You know what? I reckon I'd challenge you just one day, for 1 week, go to the kids, say, look, guys, we've got a budget of $200 for groceries. You guys need to pick what we buy. Do you know what I mean? We're not shopping, you're shopping. You have to figure out what we're buying. And you have to put the shopping list together. So you need to work out, you need to have everything you need for your lunch boxes. You need everything for school. You need everything for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You need to put all of it together and give them a budget. And then go online. Don't just go into the shop. Go online first. And then they can, potentially, it depends, right? Unless you wanted to spend 3 hours in the grocery store, then that's okay. But, either do it online or go to the grocery store and have them add up the totals and then go, oh, shit, we've gone over budget. So what do we need to take out? Let them put whatever the hell they want. But then ask them questions like, oh, but you don't have anything for lunch. So how are you going to eat lunch? Oh, well, I've got this box of tiny teddies or something. You know what I mean? Maybe that has to go. If I take this away, then we'll have enough money and then it's just teaching them priorities. It's like, but make that part of the rules, right? You must have healthy lunch. You must have healthy dinner. You must have healthy breakfast. These are the important things. You must have those things. So anything outside of that is optional. And it's, et cetera, and so on. So I reckon there's a very good lesson to be learned there, man. I'll tell you, it's interesting.
I'm just playing it out in my head and it's chaos.
Yeah, especially with 3.
I think it has to be done though. I like it.
Put up with the chaos. Get yourself in the right mindset and put up with the chaos just for a little bit. And just, you know what, man, take pleasure in doing it. Just have a laugh and just see how it all unfolds. And you know what? If they spend $300 and then they don't end up getting everything you need, bad luck. You know what? Stick to it. You'd be like, guys, we have to eat one big risol and that's all we're having for dinner because that's all you bought. Teach them a lesson, man. I'm serious, dude. I'm like, actually teach them. It's like, well, this is what you bought for dinner. You got to eat it. Oh, but we're going to be hungry. Well, you bought it. What do you want me to do? Honestly, Amit, they'll survive till tomorrow morning. They're fine. You know what I mean? But it'll teach them a goddamn lesson,
This is true. I reckon the way to do it, the way this would unfold in my family would be the 3 hours at the supermarket. Where you just go there, here's a trolley, you're pushing it, and I'll supervise and off you go. And I reckon they'll probably, by the end of the second aisle, they'll be probably having a massive argument about, it'll take 3 hours.
Good, let them do it.
More.
Let them do it. Let them argue, man. I'd just be sitting there and just watching, just being like, it's been 5 minutes. Have you guys worked out what you want yet? Oh, no, we're still arguing. Okay.
To be really cool, maybe when they're a bit older, literally give them like a $200, gift card. So they get to the checkout and, the last thing they can't buy because it scans over the 200 mark, and then it's got to be left behind. That'd be a really harsh lesson. But
Absolutely, man.
I do like it.
Absolutely. I love that. I love that. Well, hey, look, tell me one thing about, so like, we talked a lot about your personal stuff. We just had a 10-minute conversation about kids and how to teach them entrepreneurship and what kind of values we should be teaching them, which is awesome. I really do love that topic, and tell me more about the startup business, right? I do know, but for everyone that's listening at home or in the shower or at work, right, believe me, we have listeners in the shower, Amit. But wherever they might be listening, they don't actually know what you do, man. So run me through that. Well, what exactly is it that you do?
Yeah, sure. So the business is called Evince, and it's a IT consulting. Well, I just like to call it a consulting business. IT is inconsequential. I mean, my background is in technology, and I know tech inside out, back to front. But what I lead with is helping businesses understand how they can better leverage technology to achieve their business outcomes. So being that conduit between it, and I've sort of fallen into this in my career because I've been a consultant for 20 years, and I spent the early part of my career designing and building complicated engineering solutions with software and IT. And over the years, the number of times I'd spend laboring away building something with the team, and it doesn't get used or doesn't deliver value because somebody had come up with this idea and the specs were designed and they were like, that sounds like a good idea. We'll do a business case and we'll do it. We'll build the thing. But they forgot to ask their end customers or the users in the business, or they forgot to ask the CEO if this is in line with their strategy. They just were doing the thing that they thought they had to do. So my business is all about what are the things that move the needle in your business, and how does technology help you achieve those things? And my timing is good. Wasn't by design, but with AI and everything that's going on at the moment, nobody's expecting anybody to be an expert at anything. And I don't profess to be an expert at JavaScript or something. What I profess to be an expert at is the ability to bridge the gap between people, process, and technology for the delivery of outcomes. So I could talk about that for ages, but let me go back. Let me wrap it up for you. So what we do is strategy and architecture, governance, and then delivery leadership. So, what's your North Star? How are you going to get there? And I'm going to crack the whip so that you do get there. And I often lead my customers' teams and people like that. And get there. And then the third pillar of the business is when it comes to actually doing some engineering that may be above and beyond the capabilities of my customer. And certainly I don't have a business that is designed to do engineering. This is where I use partners and white labeling and things like that so that I can stretch further and actually execute a lot more for my end customers as well. So that's it.
Love that. I love that, man. I love that. So in terms of the delivery, you tend to work with other people, and you work all as a team. I think the benefit in that is, you get to hold the reins as well. So because you know exactly what the customer needs, it means that, overlooking all of the work and making sure that the deliverables match with the vision and the direction of the business. Aligns with that. And I love that. So you're consulting to bridge the gap. You're like an architect essentially, right? So
yeah, an architect, and it's very close to probably an enterprise architect is what the closest thing you call it to. And what an enterprise architect does is more about the business process and more about it's more strategic, some strategic side of things. And so the way that I unpack this, or the way that I sort of approach this rather with my customers, is that everybody wants to get through the commercial process. There needs to be a statement of work and a scope and deliverables and outcomes and all that sort of thing. Got to do it, has to be done. But as soon as an engagement or a project with me starts, I put that to the side and I literally ask the customer, and I've been doing this as recently as last week, what do you actually need to to move forward in your business. Like, what is it that you need? Tell me what it is. I don't care if it's in scope, out of scope, a deliverable or not. I don't really care. What do you need? And I had an example of this recently where a customer said to me, well, I've got to present to the executive team in a couple of weeks, and I'm presenting. I'm on the hook to present about our transformation and about our, the way we're going to approach technology and how we're going to resolve some of the problems. Blah 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 blah. And I said, great. Well, wouldn't it be great if one of the deliverables from this engagement is the slide pack you need for that presentation, rather than me creating something? Then you have to go and refactor it to what you need. Let's just go straight to the end and go straight there. So that's kind of the way that I approach it. And that resonates because most of the big consulting companies and in this case, I've competed and won over some of the big 4 consulting companies and some of the big ones to win this piece of work, simply because of the difference in the approach. It's not cookie cutter. It's not, here's a playbook, I'll just take this off the shelf and you just get that because I'm one of the big 4 consulting firms. And so you just get that. Instead, I say, no, what do you need? And let's co-create that. And then you'll get exactly what you need. That's the value proposition, I suppose.
Yeah, and then that overlaps between both the business's visions and also the customer experience and the user experience to make sure. And like even now, like I've got an app that we use for the school canteen, and pisses me off seriously because I have to make 2 transactions for both students. And it's like, why can't I just like literally the kid's name's at the top? Why can't I just press that button and then choose another student and then add another one to the order? This is a headache. Why do I have to pay twice? Do you know what I mean? I just want to pay once, select, yep, Delilah, order, done, Miller, order, done, pay now, done, see you later. No. Can't have that. No, you have to go through the 4-step checkout process to place a bloody school canteen order for $6, and then go through that entire process, and then you have to do the exact same thing. I kid you not, ordering lunch for just one student requires 8 touches. So 8 touch points through the entire process.
Yeah.
Why can't it just be 3? Search, enter, choose. Next one. Search, enter, choose. Bang. Do you know what I mean? So like it's 8 per student. When I say 8 touch points, it's 8 per student. So we're talking 16 times I have to do something in a step to place an order for a freaking canteen. You know what I mean? I'm not ordering some kind of astrophysiological quantum physics, quantum machine that's like, you know what I mean? It's not. It doesn't have to be that bloody sophisticated. You know what I'm saying? Like,
and that's it, absolutely, because it was designed by a highly technical person, and nobody asked the end user what the experience should be. It's played. This is the world that we live in, and it boggles my mind. I've been in this industry a very, very long time, and it just keeps happening. Those mistakes keep getting made. In the B2C world, the consumers are less forgiving. They will vote with their feet. App Store, next app, App Store, next app. I don't care. This didn't work. I'll try the next one. But in the B2B world, people are just, the culture is you're stuck with what you've been given. The gods of IT have given us this. Use it. And that's exactly the world that's ripe for disruption. And AI is showing us that because people will just go around and above and beyond if you don't give them what they want. And then that creates a myriad of problems.
I couldn't agree more, man. I couldn't agree more. And look, that's something, for us, like we've been trying to work out. So even for us, I think one of our biggest challenges is we don't actually know what systems to use. So for example, we're trying to set up the email campaigns. You book in for your interview on Calendly, and then from Calendly, at the moment, it's set up to go to a spreadsheet. And then with all the information, we take you to a thank you page. The thank you page collects additional information that helps us with, briefings for the interview, as well as a bunch of other information and details. And the idea is to send them a series of emails, leading up to their interview. The problem is, though, is that I'd say 95% of the apps that are available online, they don't work backwards from a date. They work forwards from the date of entry into a list. And so it's like, shit. Like I don't like what happens if they book in their interviews 3 days away instead of 7. So then we have to put them into a different email journey where we send them 2 per day instead of 1 per day. Well, what happens if they're 14 days away? So we want to spread the emails out. So, we need to work backwards from those dates without having to go and create too many sophisticated tagging systems. You know what I mean? That just make it overly complex for no reason, because when you could just work backwards from a date instead of forwards. So then I get suggested ActiveCampaign. You're right. ActiveCampaign can work backwards from a date, and they have native integrations with Calendly. Here's the deal. They don't have all of the automation set up. So you cannot trigger something to happen on ActiveCampaign from a Google spreadsheet. So if you have a web form and it all goes into a Google spreadsheet for the use of automations, right? There's no web form integration, all right? So you're screwed there. And then there's no Google Sheet. So if there's no setup, you literally have to use now another third-party app to try and work it out, where if a new row is added into the Google Sheet, then this happens over on ActiveCampaign. And it just becomes a mess. I end up having like 3 or 4 different places to actually run these automations, and it's actually become so bloody exhausting. Do you know what I mean? So I could see where a lot of people would have the similar issues and need some guidance and some help. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. That problem statement that you've got is there's a version, a variation of that every business has. Like literally everyone has it, and often the instinct is, because most people are time poor. The instinct is to look for that silver bullet to go, hey, where's that product that I can just buy or take or just plug in that'll just solve all these problems? And if you're doing something that's differentiated in the market or unique or something that gives you a competitive advantage, chances are it doesn't exist. Because if it did exist, everyone would do it and you'd no longer have the edge. So this is where, again, and most of my life is in B2B world, this is where someone like me goes in as an external consultant, goes, hey, the reason you haven't been able to solve this problem is because you're Frankensteining it. You're going this and you're doing this and you're doing this. But if this is the thing that makes your business stand out from the rest, it's worth something. And so let's just spend the time to work out what this actual workflow looks like on a whiteboard. Like, let's go end to end. What does it look like? How do we optimize it? How do we make that process really, really, like, this is a game changer for us? Now let's go and find a way to find the technology to solve it. And if it doesn't exist, we've now got a business case as to why we might need to drop some cash into developing something, because it's going to give us, we're going to get our ROI. And that's my mindset. It's very easy for me to say that. And as an external consultant, that's my job, to come in there and challenge those sorts of things and drive some of that thinking. And
Absolutely.
Sometimes, when I say sometimes, probably 7 out of 10 times, the customer or the person I'm talking to goes, this all sounds amazing. It's great. It's just we just can't do it. We just need to make it work with these constraints that we have, because we don't have the budget or the time, or we can't see far enough into the future. But every time they walk away going, but if we wanted to, we could. And if we did and back ourselves, then this thing could make our business grow or scale faster. And they know that. I know that they know that. And then I know I've done my job. So that's the way I think anyway.
That's good, man. That's good. Well, Amit, listen, man, like there's going to be so many people that have watched this interview that are going to be like, man, you know what? I'd love to have a chat and, find out more and see if I can, see if there's any room for improvement or change in their businesses. That's what's going to happen after people watch this interview. Mate, how can people reach out? How can people find you?
I've got two websites I'll just mention. My personal website is amits.com.au, amits.com.au. And from there, there's a bit about my story that I talked a little bit about and links to my business as well. And my business website, evince, is just evince.com.au. Probably the best two ways to get me. I'm also on LinkedIn mostly, and a little bit around my personal stuff on Instagram.
Yeah, cool. And it's funny that I thought of this earlier, and it's funny because you mentioned it again now. Evince is a very Kiwi way to say events. You know what I mean? It just clicked to me, right? Because you said you guys had spent some time in New Zealand, right? So you going to that events, bro? Did that ever cross your mind at all, or no?
Oh yeah, in New Zealand all the time. I put on my jandals, went to the beach. We had events all the time.
I love it.
It has crossed my mind. It has.
Yeah, that's brilliant, man. That is so good. Oh man, no, I love that. So, mate, thank you so much for your time and for sharing your journey and all the information about you and some of the great things that you do. It was very look, I really enjoyed it. So, thank you so much, man.
Thanks, Dean. No, I really enjoyed it as well. Really broke up my day and loved the chat, and I've loved every chat that we've had, and I hope we have many more.
No worries, mate. Absolutely. Thank you so much for coming on. And for everyone that's listening at home, if you did want to reach out to Amit directly, you're very welcome to also email us at support@launchdday.au. And we'll put all of Amit's socials in the actual YouTube descriptions as well. So you're very welcome to go down there and find out more or get in touch as well. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons. It really helps us to grow and reach more people just like you. We're a family here. We're all working together. We're all working on a common goal, and that is to all grow together. So your participation and your support in all of this is going to help people like you and like Amit to be able to grow and flourish and become these brilliant entrepreneurs that we all know that we're going to be. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you again on the next one.